aka Murder Case. What happened that fatal night? February 10th, 2023, 10 p.m., Florida Road, Durban. A hip-hop legend steps out of a restaurant and into the crosshairs of what police are calling one of South Africa's most elaborate assassination plots. This isn't just another celebrity murder case. This is a calculated hit worth 800,000 rand, involving taxi mafias, construction cartels, and a web of surveillance that started at the airport. I'm about to break down 10 shocking facts about AKA's murder that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about that fatal night. The execution-style killing. Let's start with the cold, hard facts of February 10th, 2023. Picture this. Florida Road, Durban, one of the city's most vibrant nightlife strips, buzzing with Friday night energy. AKA steps out of Wish restaurant around 10 p.m. He's supposed to perform at Hugo nightclub later that evening. The 35-year-old rap superstar is living his best life, probably thinking about the crowd waiting for him, maybe running through his set list in his head. Then reality hits, literally. A gunman approaches with the kind of calm precision that sends chills down your spine. This isn't some panicked street robbery. This is execution-style, point-blank range, shot in the back of the head. The killer doesn't hesitate, doesn't say a word, doesn't demand anything. He pulls that trigger with the cold efficiency of someone who's done this before. But here's what makes it even more brutal. There was a second gunman on the scene. This wasn't a lone wolf situation, folks. We're talking coordinated, professional-level violence. His friend Tibbs, successful celebrity chef and businessman, gets caught in this nightmare and pays the ultimate price. AKA's bodyguard, wounded but alive, which tells you something about the precision of this hit. They knew exactly who they came for. The gunmen flee on foot, melting into the Durban night like ghosts. Within minutes, South Africa loses one of its biggest hip-hop stars, and the entertainment industry is left asking one terrifying question. If they can get to AKA, who's safe? But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't some random street crime gone wrong. Tibbs wasn't the target. Here's where this case gets absolutely heartbreaking and reveals the cold calculation behind this assassination. Tibbs, successful celebrity chef, restaurateur, and businessman, wasn't supposed to die that night. Police sources have made it crystal clear. AKA was monitored from the airport, and Tibbs was not the intended target. Let that sink in for a moment. Tibbs was collateral damage in someone else's death sentence. Picture this scenario. You're out for dinner with a friend on a Friday night. You're laughing, probably planning the rest of your evening, maybe talking business or reminiscing about old times. You have no idea that your friend has a target on his back, that professional killers have been tracking his every move since he landed at the airport. You're completely innocent in this nightmare, but when those bullets start flying, innocence doesn't stop lead. The tragic irony? Tibbs had built a legitimate empire, restaurants, catering businesses, celebrity partnerships. He was living the South African dream through hard work and entrepreneurship. But on February 10th, his proximity to AKA became his death warrant. What makes this even more chilling is the level of precision involved. These weren't trigger-happy amateurs spraying bullets everywhere. The fact that they took out both men but only wounded the bodyguard tells you they had specific targets and specific orders. Tibbs wasn't in their original plan, but professional killers adapt quickly. His family didn't just lose a loved one that night. They lost him to a war he never even knew was being fought. Speaking of precision, you won't believe how far back this surveillance operation actually went. Tracked from the airport. Now we're getting into the stuff that'll make your skin crawl. This wasn't some opportunistic crime where criminals spotted a celebrity and decided to rob him. Oh no, this surveillance operation had layers that would make intelligence agencies jealous. Picture AKA's last day alive, February 10th, 2023. His flight touches down at King Shaka International Airport, and he's probably thinking about his upcoming performance, maybe checking his phone, grabbing his luggage. Normal Friday afternoon stuff, right? Wrong. From the moment his feet hit that airport floor, he was being watched. Professional eyes were on him, tracking his every move like a predator stalking prey. Police sources revealed that they've obtained footage, actual video evidence, showing surveillance by the alleged hitmen who later carried out their execution at Wish restaurant. We're talking about cameras, coordination, and a level of planning that suggests these killers had resources, technology, and most importantly, inside information. Think about the logistics here. Someone knew AKA's flight details, his arrival time, probably even his travel itinerary. This wasn't public information, folks. Either they had incredible intelligence gathering capabilities, or someone in AKA's circle, someone he trusted, was feeding information to killers. The surveillance continued from the airport all the way to Florida Road. That's roughly a 30-minute drive where these hitmen had to navigate Durban traffic, maintain visual contact, and position themselves for the perfect strike. They weren't just following him, they were choreographing his death. Here's what really gets me. AKA had no idea he was driving to his own execution. While he's probably jamming to music or chatting with Tibbs, professional killers are coordinating his assassination via radio or cell phones, updating each other on his location, planning their escape routes. This level of surveillance doesn't happen overnight. This was weeks, maybe months in the making. But wait until you hear about the family behind this operation. The powerful and feared family buckle up, because we're about to dive into the shadowy underworld that allegedly orchestrated AKA's murder. We're not talking about your average street gang here. We're talking about what city press sources describe as a family so powerful and feared that even seasoned police investigators speak about them in hushed tones. Picture this: a criminal empire that operates like a legitimate business, except their business is violence, intimidation, and control. According to police sources, this family has their fingers in two of South Africa's most lucrative and dangerous criminal enterprises: taxi operations and the so-called construction mafia in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's break this down. The taxi industry in KZN isn't just about transportation. It's a multi-billion rand empire, where routes are territorial battlegrounds and disputes are often settled with bullets, not boardroom meetings. Control a major taxi route, and you control the flow of money, people, and power through entire communities. Then there's the construction mafia, cartels that muscle their way into major building projects, demanding protection money, forcing subcontractors to use their services, or face the consequences. We're talking about criminals who can shut down billion-rand infrastructure projects with a phone call or a well-placed threat. Now imagine a family that operates at the intersection of both these criminal enterprises. They don't just have money, they have influence, they have networks, and most importantly, they have the kind of reach that can make problems disappear permanently. One security cluster source didn't mince words. This family is powerful and feared. That's law enforcement code for these people have tentacles everywhere, and crossing them is a death sentence. But here's what should terrify you. Families like this don't get personally involved in street-level violence unless the target represents a serious threat to their operations or their reputation. So the question becomes, what did AKA do, know, or represent that was worth risking an 800,000 rand hit contract in international manhunt? This wasn't about robbery, jealousy, or a random beef. When criminal royalty decides you need to die, it's because you've become a problem that money, intimidation, and influence can't solve. And if you think that's disturbing, the connection to AKA's fiance's death will blow your mind. The Anele Tembe connection. Hold on to your seats, because what I'm about to tell you will send chills down your spine and make you question everything you thought you knew about AK's personal life and the events leading up to his death. April 11th, 2021, Cape Town's Pepper Club Hotel. In the early hours of the morning, AKA's fiancée, 22-year-old Anele Tembe, plunges to her death from the 10th floor. The official ruling? Suicide. The public narrative? A young woman struggling with mental health issues in a turbulent relationship. Case closed. Right? Wrong. Fast forward to February 2023, and police sources drop a bombshell that connects these two tragedies in the most sinister way possible. One of the suspects, allegedly involved in AKA's assassination, was reportedly spotted at the Pepper Club Hotel crime scene back in 2021. Let that marinate for a moment. The same criminal network that executed AKA may have been involved in his fiance's death 2 years earlier. Think about the implications here. Was Anele's death really suicide, or was it the first move in a long-term plan to systematically destroy AKA's life? Did she discover something she shouldn't have? Was she a threat to powerful people? Or was her death used as psychological warfare against AKA? A warning that escalated to execution when he didn't get the message. AKA was devastated by Anele's death. He spoke openly about his grief, his guilt, the way her loss haunted him.
Anele was, still is, my whole life. My wife to be. I wake up every day. I find it very hard to get up in the mornings to make it through the day.
Imagine living with that pain for 2 years, only to discover that the same criminals who allegedly orchestrated your murder might have been responsible for the death that shattered your world in the first place. But here's where it gets even darker. Police sources claim this suspect allegedly met with one of the suspects, who has been arrested on a different charge and was allegedly involved in the shooting. We're talking about a criminal network with tentacles reaching back years, connecting multiple crimes across different cities. This isn't just about AKA's murder anymore. This is potentially about a pattern of elimination that spans years. First, they take away the person he loves most. Then, they let him live with that grief, that guilt, that psychological torture. And when that isn't enough, when he doesn't break or bow down or disappear quietly into obscurity, they finish the job with bullets on Florida Road. If these connections are proven in court, we're not looking at a simple hit. We're looking at a psychological campaign of terror that culminated in assassination. But let's talk numbers, because this hit came with a very specific price tag. The 800,000 hit contract. Let's talk money, because in the world of organized crime, every life has a price tag, and AKA's was worth exactly 800,000. But this isn't just about the money, it's about what that number tells us about the people who wanted him dead, and the level of planning that went into his execution. The South African Police Service has confirmed that there was a coordinator, what they're calling the master of everything, who orchestrated the payments to the murder suspects.
We have a coordinator who's basically the master of everything.
This wasn't a crowd-funded assassination or a pooled gang resource situation. One person, one criminal mind, had 800,000 rand in liquid cash ready to spend on murder. That tells you we're dealing with someone at the very top of a criminal empire. But here's where it gets fascinating from an investigative standpoint. One of the accused, Anele Tembe, has denied that the 800,000 rand deposited into his account was payment for the contract killing.
It was further established from the bank records of applicant 4, Gwabeni, that on the 11th of February 2023 at approximately 1400 hours, he received an amount of 803,000 rands, 455 rands.
Think about that denial for a second. He's not denying the money was there. He's just denying what it was for. Classic criminal defense strategy. Admit the obvious facts, but deny the criminal intent. The paper trail doesn't lie though.
Rather, applicant number 4 says, I've been paid for services rendered. We are saying there's no such evidence.
Now here's what really gets me. This wasn't a lump sum payment to one person. Police believe this money was split between multiple suspects, which means we're looking at a coordinated team effort. The mastermind didn't just hire one killer. They assembled an entire assassination squad and paid them like professional contractors. Compare this to other hits in the criminal underworld. Remember, these same suspects allegedly received just 1,500 rand for killing a taxi owner 3 months earlier. 1,500 versus 800,000. That's a 53,000% increase in payment. AKA wasn't just another target. He was a premium elimination that required premium resources and premium pay. But here's the most chilling part. Someone out there had 800,000 rand to spend on murder and considered it a worthwhile investment. They didn't just want AKA dead. They wanted him dead so badly that they were willing to pay more than 500,000 rand to make it happen. That's not revenge money. That's not jealousy money. That's eliminate a threat to our empire money. Now, about those suspects, the arrest operation was like something out of a Hollywood thriller. The international manhunt. What I'm about to tell you sounds like something straight out of a Netflix crime thriller, but this is real life. And the manhunt for AKA's killers turned into an international operation that exposed just how sophisticated this criminal network really was. Picture this, February 10th, 2023. AKA and Tibbs are gunned down on Florida Road. The killers vanish into the Durban night, and for months it seems like they've disappeared into thin air. But behind the scenes, South African law enforcement is orchestrating one of the most complex international manhunts in recent memory. Police Minister Baki Keller announced that 6 men have been arrested in connection with the murders, but here's where it gets interesting. Some of these suspects were recently extradited from Eswatini. Think about that for a second. These weren't local thugs who went home after the hit. These were professionals who had escape routes planned across international borders. Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, sits right next to KwaZulu-Natal, making it the perfect bolt hole for criminals looking to disappear. It's close enough for a quick getaway, but foreign enough to complicate extradition procedures. These killers didn't just run, they ran with precision, crossing borders like they had done it before. But crossing into Eswatini wasn't the end of their plan. It was just phase one of their escape strategy. Sources suggest some of these suspects have connections that run deep into the kingdom, possibly involving local criminal networks or corrupt officials who could provide safe passage and sanctuary. We're talking about criminals with international resources, contacts, and most importantly, the kind of money that opens doors and closes mouths. The extradition process itself tells us volumes about how seriously both countries are taking this case. Extradition isn't automatic. It requires diplomatic negotiations, legal proceedings, and cooperation between law enforcement agencies across borders. The fact that Eswatini agreed to send these suspects back means South African authorities presented compelling evidence of their involvement. Think about the logistics involved in this manhunt. South African police had to coordinate with Interpol, work with Eswatini law enforcement, navigate international legal frameworks, and probably deal with suspects who had lawyers fighting extradition every step of the way. This wasn't a simple arrest operation. This was a diplomatic and legal chess match that played out over months. But here's what really gets me. The fact that these suspects fled internationally suggests they knew this hit would generate serious heat. Amateur criminals commit crimes and hope they don't get caught. Professional criminals plan their escapes before they pull the trigger. The international flight pattern tells us these weren't desperate gangsters. They were calculated professionals who understood the gravity of what they had done. Some of these suspects are still out there, by the way. The manhunt isn't over. There are still pieces of this criminal puzzle scattered across international borders, and South African law enforcement is playing a patient, methodical game to bring them all home to face justice. But the criminal connections of these suspects run deeper than just AKA's murder. The other murders. Here's where this case takes a turn that will make you realize AKA's murder wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the most expensive hit in a killing spree that reveals the cold, calculated nature of this criminal enterprise. Picture this scene. 3 months before AKA and Tibbs were gunned down on Florida Road, two of the same suspects were caught on security cameras executing a taxi owner inside a Durban shopping mall. But here's what makes this even more chilling. After committing murder in broad daylight, these killers didn't flee in panic or hide in shame. They went to celebrate. They checked into a hotel with their families. They ordered room service. They probably watched TV, maybe even saw news reports about the murder they had just committed. And then, like they were handing out Christmas bonuses, they paid their accomplices 1,500 Rand each for their roles in the killing. 1,500. That's barely enough for a decent night out. But for these criminals, it was fair payment for ending a human life. Now contrast that with AKA's hit, 800,000 Rand. We're looking at a 53,000% increase in payment between victims. But this isn't just about money. It's about the systematic, business-like approach these killers take to murder. They have rate cards, folks. Different prices for different targets, different levels of planning, different payouts for different levels of risk. Think about the psychology here. After killing the taxi owner, they celebrated with their families. That tells you everything you need to know about how normalized violence is in their world. Murder isn't a traumatic event for these people. It's Tuesday afternoon work that gets rewarded with family time and cash bonuses. But here's what really gets me, the taxi industry connection. Remember, the powerful family allegedly behind AKA's murder has deep ties to taxi operations in KwaZulu-Natal. This taxi owner wasn't just a random victim. He was likely a business rival, someone who refused to pay protection money, or a threat to their territorial control. His death was business, pure and simple. The mall setting is significant too. These killers walked into a busy shopping center and executed a man in cold blood. That level of brazenness tells you they felt untouchable, protected by their criminal network, and confident they could kill in public without consequences. And you know what? For 3 months, they were right. They got away with it. They collected their 1,500 Rand payouts, went home to their families, and probably started planning their next hit, which turned out to be the biggest payday of their criminal careers. AKA's 800,000 Rand assassination. This pattern reveals something terrifying about organized crime in South Africa. Murder has become industrialized. These aren't crimes of passion or desperation, they're business transactions. Human lives are reduced to line items in a criminal budget, with different price points depending on the target's value to the organization. What makes this even more disturbing is that these murders were just the ones we know about. How many other victims are there? How many other taxi owners, business rivals, or threats to this criminal empire have been eliminated with the same cold efficiency? Now let's talk about what the state is planning to prove in court. 45 witnesses and 11 charges. The prosecution isn't just throwing everything at the wall and hoping something sticks. They're building a case so comprehensive, so meticulously detailed, that it reads like a masterclass in how to dismantle a criminal empire. We're talking about 45 witnesses and 11 charges that paint a picture of conspiracy so complex it'll make your head spin. 45 witnesses. This is an entire community of evidence. Surveillance operators who tracked the footage, forensic accountants who followed the money trail, ballistics experts who matched the bullets, cellular analysts who traced the communications, airport security who witnessed the initial surveillance, restaurant staff who saw the final moments, medical professionals who treated the wounded bodyguard, and probably criminal associates who decided to cooperate rather than face life sentences themselves. But here's what makes this case truly extraordinary. The 11 charges these suspects are facing. We're not just talking about murder. We're talking about a criminal conspiracy that involves murder, attempted murder, unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition, and likely charges related to conspiracy, racketeering, and organized crime activities. Here's what 45 witnesses and 11 charges tell us about the strength of this case. Prosecutors believe they can prove not just that these men killed AKA and Tibbs, but that they can trace the entire criminal enterprise from the masterminds who ordered the hit, to the coordinators who planned it, to the surveillance who tracked the targets, to the gunmen who pulled the triggers, and even to the support network that helped them escape. But here's the kicker. Justice is still a long way off. Justice delayed until 2026. The trial dates have been set for July 2026, with the state being granted a final postponement to allow for the extradition of 2 siblings from Eswatini. We're looking at almost 4 years from the murder to trial, 4 years for AKA's family to wait for answers, 4 years for South Africa to see if justice will truly be served. So there you have it. 10 shocking facts about AKA's murder that paint a picture of professional assassination, organized crime connections, and a web of corruption that reaches far beyond one tragic night in Durban. This wasn't just the loss of a hip-hop legend. It was a calculated elimination that exposes the dark underbelly of South African organized crime. What do you think? Was this connected to AKA's outspoken personality? Or was there something deeper we still don't know? Drop your theories in the comments below, and if you want to stay updated on more true crime cases that shock South Africa, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, the cases I cover next will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, in the world of organized crime, nothing is ever as simple as it seems.